Welcome to the crescendo, the last round of this year's World Chess Championships, and I think everyone was expecting something very exciting to occur in this last round. Obviously, up to this point, they've been deadlocked, a draw in every single game. So if one side wins this one, they become world champion. So much pressure that both these players must have been feeling before the game. I mean, if you guys play chess at home in tournaments, you can understand the pressure, but times that by 1,000 and you might be in the same position as these guys. So let's have a look at the game. Well, we had Fabiano with the advantage of the white pieces, and he came out with e4. Again, he seems to have stuck to this move throughout this World Championships. He also plays d4, but e4 is his main move. Magnus sticks to his guns and plays c5. And I found it very interesting. I wouldn't have predicted that Magnus would have played the Sicilian before this match, but he really has stuck to it, and he's really sort of said to Fabiano, look, I'm going to sort of play quite aggressively with black. I'm going to play the Sicilian. Let me get the ball back there. Where did it go? Okay. You know, obviously someone didn't like the Sicilian there. So he has stuck to his guns, and he's kind of gone for it with black. And I have to admit, Magnus has been much more impressive with the black pieces compared to the white pieces. I think you'll probably all agree with me. Now, Fabiano plays the same line we've seen in some previous games, the open Sicilian. Yes, most exciting. And we now have the Shrezhnikov variation, knight c3. e5, and this is one of the sharpest lines of the Sicilian. I have to say it's something I'm going to start looking at now. Everyone's going to probably start playing this opening as black. Knight b d5, trying to come into d6, so black stops that. We talked about the structural implications of this position in a previous video, so I won't go there again. And now Fabiano played this kind of rarish move. I mean, knight d5 obviously has become very popular during this World Championships, but previous to this, white invariably plays bishop g5. So if you want to learn this opening as black, probably bishop g5 is the first move you should analyse at home when white tries to play quite positionally and taking over the d5 square. So yeah, this is certainly, and you get something like here, knight a3, and so you can have b5. The knight coming into d5 is the general kind of idea that you get in this position. White trying to take control of this. Black has counterplay on the queen side, and later on some f5 moves come relevant. Anyway, knight d5. This knight has to be exchanged, and now we see the first new move. Now, I mentioned in previous videos that Magnus had picked knight to b8 because this knight is actually better on the b8 square. It has better potential to find squares. But the move he played now, which I kind of poo-pooed in previous videos, and I said maybe it wasn't as good, but it has apparently got the Kramnik thumbs up, is knight to e7. And this actually, Magnus makes it look like a very interesting option. The idea is, okay, this knight has got to go somewhere, and the idea is to put it on g6. If you get a chance even into f4, that's probably quite unlikely. But generally, the knight can even come back to f8 later on, as we see, and come around in a very funny fashion. But it's quite a quick way of playing, because the knight on g6, it comes there very quickly. So black sort of saves a bit of time rather than putting a knight on b8, as we're going to see. And you get certainly different positions here. Fabiano played the logical move c4, and now you have to really play knight g6 here. The move pawn to g6 looks quite suspect. There's a pawn on d6 here, and maybe white can just play the move c5 immediately, and this could lead to major problems because you see the knight is blocking the bishop. Pawn takes, and then d6, and well, this is game over. Fabiano world champion, so we don't want to do this. And another very interesting little move that white could try here, that c4 has allowed, and this is also very dangerous, is queen a4. And the point being, if bishop g7, knight somewhere, double check, either there or c7. And, of course, you don't want to start playing moves like bishop d6, because that would be one of the most embarrassing ways to lose a world championship match. So knight g6 is normal. And now queen to a4 anyway, threatening this check. This has to be broken. Bishop d7, and now you see d6 is defended, so black doesn't have to worry about the same things he did in the previous line. Now queen to b4, hitting the d6 square. And one thing you have to maybe bear in mind if you want to play this line knight to g6 yourselves, because I'm sure, again, like I said, the Shrezhnikov is going to come very popular, is that white is able to get a draw with this plan of going queen b4 and queen a4. This queen coming backwards and forwards. Because here you have to defend d6. So you have to move your bishop. And then the queen can come back to a4. And you have to go bishop d7 in these positions. You can't play queen d7 because knight c7 check is going to pick up the rook. So just bear that in mind if you have to allow the draw. And we're going to talk more about this draw option later on, of course. Now the main move here. Pawn to h4, of course, and Harry must be used. And again, there's nothing wrong with pushing Harry if you have a good reason. Normally when there's something on g6, if there's a pawn on g6, you can attack it with h5. And in this situation, very logical, because we want to annoy that knight. If black now plays something like bishop e7, h5 is very annoying. Where does this knight go? I mean, if it goes to f4, which looks semi-aggressive, but I think it's actually quite loose on this square. Okay, there is a threat, maybe a knight coming into d3, but as soon as white deals that, g3 is really going to question that knight. So black decided to play h5 to stop this advance. And now we had queen a4, bishop d7, queen b4, bishop f5. And here, loads of people are saying, right, so it's going to be a draw. There's too much pressure for these guys to handle. They're going to shake hands and agree a draw. And I have to say, utmost credit to Fabiano, who, of course, I mean, just put it into context how much pressure these guys are feeling. It's very easy for us armchair observers to criticise their actions in this game when we're looking from a very relaxed thing, sitting on the couch, having a cup of tea. When you're there and you're playing for the World Championships and a serious amount of money and you've got one game on it, literally, the nerves, I don't think you can get anything like that in anything else in the world. It's a mind game, and it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary pressure. So, bailing out to a draw and going to a quick play finish is very understandable. And I would not have blamed Fabiano for doing that, just so he has a day to calm down and just saying, right, I'm going to put everything to the quick play. Now, there's been a lot of talk. Of course, Magnus Carlsen is going to be favourite in the quick play, but we'll discuss that at the end of the analysis of this game. But still, Fabiano plays bishop e3, and I just think he must be absolutely commended for not taking the draw and being brave enough to play on in this game. So I think that is a sign of a champion. Really is. Well done, Fabiano. Magnus kicks the knight away and now defends c7. g3 now played. Magnus develops bishop e7. And here, a very weird move, pawn to f3. And this is a very odd idea that Fabiano comes up with. I mean, I think the idea is, if you play this bishop somewhere, I don't know where, I don't think it matters, Fabiano must have been afraid of black playing e4 himself. And then bringing this knight, this is one advantage, having the knight on g6. If you can get it to e5, you're very happy. Imagine that knight on that square. I don't know where white castles, let's say kingside, knight to e5. And this knight has some very juicy squares. You can go rook c8, increase the pressure here, and start a kingside attack with black as well. So f3 was aimed to stop this, but also it looks very clumsy, these pawns here, as well. Magnus now played a very good move. This knight no longer has ambitions of coming to f4, no longer has ambitions of coming to e5, because, of course, if you play e4, you lose a pawn. So Magnus likes giving his pieces the best options, and this was a fantastic move. Knight to f8. This is a sign of a great player. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us would have castled kingside and then thought about what to play. But again, it's really thinking about the potential of your pieces. And you can't play with a bad piece at this level. You have to maximize your pieces as much as you can. And knight to f8, bring the knight to d7 and maybe to c5 or elsewhere is a great way to reroute that knight to a meaningful life. And that's something we all should aspire to, including the pieces on the chessboard. Now Fabiano plays knight to e4. And I think from this stage, it's clear that, you know, Magnus takes some control of the position. Magnus playing very quickly, and his understanding of the position seems to be a little bit better than Fabiano's here. I mean, it's a difficult position to suggest, but f3 and knight to e4 is probably not the right idea, as we're going to see. Instead of f3, if we just go back a minute, I mean, earlier on, there's a couple of things I should have mentioned. After bishop f5, the main one, bishop e3, was played. Bishop g5 must be the critical move, first of all. And this must have been something that Fabiano did not want to play, because I'm sure he came to the conclusion that Magnus had analysed this in depth, because Magnus playing very quickly. Queen b8 probably being the best move here, just for those of you who are interested. So that's the first thing. But then instead of f3, it was probably critical to do something like knight to a4 here and put that knight onto b6. Fabiano's saying this is quite a risky strategy, but you know, you're playing for a win now, Fabiano. You've got to play risky stuff. This would have been a better way to play, because if we go back to the current position, after knight e4, knight d7, bishop d3, normal move, defending this knight, Magnus now castles. It strikes me now that I actually like Black's position. Magnus has put his pieces on very lovely squares, and why do I like Black's position? One simple way to decide what openings you should be playing is to give yourself very easy plans in the middle game. You don't want to be struggling to find a plan in the middle game. So even if you pick openings which are slightly inferior, if you know what you should be doing in the middle game, go for those openings. And here, Black has numerous ideas. One idea is to secure the c5 square. Another idea is to at some point break with b5. These are all typical ideas. Another idea is to eventually go for f5, and this is a very strong idea. Again, like I've said numerous times in my videos, using your pawn majority. You often want to use your pawn majority. And here, Black has 4 versus 3, so you use your majority in those positions. And White, I'm not really sure what White's plan is. White's got to decide where he puts his king. If he goes kingside, he could run into an attack with f5. And going queenside is really risky. He goes queenside. I mean, he's a very brave guy, as Fabiano. He plays this very interesting move, rook h2, to try and help defend his queenside. Rook to c8, why not bring another piece into play? Pressure on the c line. And now, look at this. Fabiano just castles into that line. I mean, quite extraordinary, really, that you could play in such a manner. And, you know, he's really asking Magnus the question. The point is, if b5, now we see the point of rook h2, it comes to c2. And, you know, this kind of position may well be just about playable for Magnus, but you've got to be careful. Often the queen side is White's area, even though his king's here, because, again, he's got the pawn majority there, and his pieces are very nicely situated over here. And it's not really clear how Magnus continues, and he might actually lose track of the queen side here. So I think what Magnus played, keeping the tension, keeping the b5 move until later, was much more logical. Very simple chess. Bishop g6. I like this move. Magnus wants to continue with f5, forcing White's very strong knight away. And then he can start thinking about pushing with either the f-pawn or the e-pawn. Maybe bring the bishop to f6. And around here, it really looks like Fabiano is starting to struggle, in my eyes. Let's go on. Rook c2. Pawn to f5, play. And now White's pieces are also lacking any good squares. This knight has to move away, and it goes back to the very passive square of 2. And I think as soon as you play a move such as this, you're going the wrong way. You know, you're not taking your opportunities. Where's that knight going now? And where White's pieces haven't really got any good squares. And the other thing, which I think is so important for this position, Black has all the breaks. Black has all the pawn breaks. f4, e4, b5, a5. All of these moves are possible. White doesn't have really any good pawn breaks. g4, f4 and c5, they're never really working here. And you want to be the side having the pawn breaks in a position, because you don't have to play them straight away, but they're always there and your opponent always has to worry about them. And this is the case here. And also, look, Lovely square for the Black Knight. Now Magnus has taken control. Beautiful square. The position now resembles a great Najdorf Sicilian for Black, and Magnus has played fantastically. Here, Black is threatening to take that bishop off and maybe play f4. For example, let's say king b1, knight takes d3, pawn to f4, and Black is now winning a piece. That bishop on g6 comes alive. So Fabiano has to really play f4 to block in that one piece of Magnus's, the bishop on g6. And now Magnus has a couple of ideas here. And he decides to go for a5. And I think this is absolutely fine. But a number of players in the commentary, a lot of other grandmasters, were saying, why on earth did Magnus not play b5 here? And it's a very valid question. And now we're going to see a bit of psychological things. I mean, I think both players are obviously very nervous for this match. Magnus, if he needed to win, may have played b5. The point being, if pawn takes b5, knight takes d3, and queen takes c2, will be checkmate. So white can't take this pawn on b5. And if the bishop moves, bishop e2, just a5. And if queen takes here, bishop e8 traps that queen on b5. So b5 looks like a very logical way. You're trying to open up the area of the board where your opponent's king is. The king is over here. Let's open that king up. It's on that side of the board. And let's go for the attack. So I think if Black needed to win, he would have played this move. And I think on 99% of the time, Magnus would have played this. But you've got to remember the context of this game. Context is important for everything. It's like in the press, people take sentences totally out of context and make headlines from it when they're totally artificial. Take the context. The context here is Magnus, before the game, had in his mind what battlefield, and this was something Olympiad, very influential person on Twitter, mentioned on his Patreon page as well. Go and check him out. And he mentioned Magnus has picked his battlefield. He wants to fight now in the rapid. He wants to just take this match to the rapid and blitz. And because he's stronger there than Fabiano. Yes, he is stronger. I mean, I still think Fabiano can win. It's going to be extremely exciting. But he's already decided that. So before going into this, he's right, a draw is okay. And when you got that in your mind, to change to then suddenly playing for a win when you're probably going to take more risks and you could lose and you're going to be kicking yourself forever, it's really hard to do. So you've got an idea in your mind before going into the game and you stick to it. And I understand that. That's what he's doing here. That's why he played a5, keeping still a good position, but keeping things a bit more closed, not taking so many risks. So I totally understand this decision. We'll talk more about this at the end. The queen goes back to d2, and now e4. I mean, I'm not necessarily sure this needed to be played yet, but the next move proves that it is a good idea in some respects. Bishop e8. And here, I was liking this a5 decision because I think now Magnus, when I was watching this live, I thought, great, he's actually played a very clever idea. He's going to go bishop a4, probably force white to play b3, and then at some point, the bishop can just retreat, and he will then have two pawn breaks, b5 and a4, that Fabiano's always going to have to worry about. What pawn breaks does white have? None. Black has two. It's a closed position, meaning the pawns are locked. Not many open lines. There's not many things to be done. So he who has the pawn breaks has the advantage. So I thought very clever play. You're not risking anything by playing like this. So I'm not criticising Magnus for not playing b5. King b1. And around here, I think Magnus went a little bit on autopilot. Why did he not play bishop a4? I don't understand. The point is b3 now. Maybe there's a sacrifice on b3, but I don't think they're quite working. But let's just keep it simple. The bishop comes back to e8 in order to defend here. And we've induced this weakness b3. Why do we want to induce that? Because now, when a4 comes, we have a target to attack. And there's always going to be tactics. Let's say something like knight h3 trying to come in here. There's always going to be tactics like a4. There's no way white can take on a4 or allow black to take on b3. White has to keep his king blocked with b4. And there's always going to be this move at some point that Fabiano has to watch out for. Maybe not here, but this is the kind of thing that Fabiano has to be aware of for the rest of the game, especially if black can arrange to get a rook there and a bishop there. So the idea of playing bishop a4 here, black losing a tempo, but now he has what people would say traditionally is a hook. The pawn on b3 is a hook now that black can play for. Seems very logical. And also b5 at some point might be playable. Bishop f6 was played. And now rook e1, and Magnus misses another opportunity. The opportunity would have been to play bishop to a4 now, and this would have been extremely strong. And it's just the mindset. When you're thinking draw, you're not going to start thinking super aggressive ideas. And the point here is, if b3 now, well, now a sacrifice here is looking very tempting. We have another piece in the attack. I don't know what we take with. We can consider taking like this, and this looks incredibly dangerous, something like this. And if white goes rook to c1, then b5 comes. And this, as a supercomputer Sessi says, after pawn takes queen b6, is nearly +2 for black. Black is going to take on b5, and every black piece is working. Every black piece is looking at the white king, and white, you know, it's typical opposite side castling position. I don't think white should be able to survive here. So this was a missed opportunity. But again, getting out the mindset, very difficult to play in that aggressive way. So we had a4 played, and Magnus said in the press that he played this move because he simply saw that bishop d4, which is obviously a move that white wants to play to get rid of this bishop, is losing now because of knight b3, and this is why he played it. Point being, pawn takes here. Let's say rook c1, bishop takes, queen takes, and then something like queen here coming in, and this attack is tremendous. And this is why Magnus played this a4 move, and he's just trying to stop white from playing his things. He's moving quickly to keep the pressure on Fabiano. Also, I think that's a sign that he's nervous. Moving quickly generally is, because the more you think there, the more you can get nervous. But I can still understand this. But this was probably a mistake. Well, obviously bishop a4 is fantastically strong, but queen b4 defense. g6, queen g7 ideas, rook d1, white wants to play bishop d4, swapping off, and now rook a8, and maybe the most shocking thing of the whole match, around here, a draw was agreed. Magnus offered a draw, a rook a8, and pretty much out. I mean, I'd like to know what you guys think about this. There was, around the chess community, around spectators, absolutely disparaging remarks about Magnus and outcries everywhere. How can Magnus offer a draw in a position like this? What is going on? Why is he offering a draw here with black? This is crazy decision. Give us our money back. This shouldn't be chess. Draws shouldn't be allowed. This is crazy. What about the spectators? What about, how dare Magnus do this? All these kind of comments have been said. With some, this is my opinion. So with some basis of truth, I guess. But again, it's context. It's context. Yes, black is better in this position. Do not get me wrong. But black's probably lost a lot of his advantage here. And he's also up on time, Magnus, but he's lost a lot of his advantage. He's not in the right mindset. He's thinking about the battleground he wants to play. He's gone into this draw is good, rapid play, that's where I'm going to go. You get less nervous in a rapid play because you have to move quicker in some respects. You haven't got time to be nervous, so maybe this is a sign. White also has chances here to sort of unravel. If white can ever go knight to g5 and bishop d4, swapping off the bishops and getting this knight to g5, there's a lot of squares in black's position that could be weak. Another thing, this knight could come to e3 or even to c3, and it's very hard for black to break through. So, yes, black is better here, but I don't think significantly. And I understand why a draw was offered. Look, he's just deciding, I want to take it to rapid. I want to have a rest there. I need to recover. Sign of nerves, definitely. And Fabiano, showing better nerves, it must admit, that is a sign, potentially. But also, he's gone into, if you have one set idea going into a game, you have to be like some superhuman not to get nervous and to change during the course of the game. So I understand a draw here, and it does mean on Wednesday we are going to get this rapid, and it's going to be extremely exciting, isn't it? 4 games. Magnus is favourite, of course, because he is he's extremely good at rapid, and blitz. He's phenomenal. Fabiano's no duffer. Fabiano is a great rapid player as well, and he's shown tremendous resilience, Fabiano. There's clearly not much between these two players. And Magnus is his favourite. But Gary Kasparov said something very interesting in a tweet. Gary Kasparov said, well, with Magnus's attitude in this game, he now thinks that Fabiano is favourite in the rapid play section because he's shown better nerves. He turned down a draw. He took a draw here because he thought he was worse. Why not? And Gary Kasparov is obviously the god of chess. He understands everything. I think Carlsen's still favourite, but it can really go any way. I've had quite a lot of people say, it got quite mad at me on Twitter actually, because they're saying, Simon, you're so clearly biased, Magnus, slagging off some of Fabiano's moves, H3 in one game. Well, I try not to be. I mean, I gave you my personal view that I want, I'm sort of want Magnus to win, but that's nothing against Fabiano. It's just because I'm a big fan of Magnus's chess. Yes, he's not playing as well as he did, but he's got such natural ability. Not that Fabiano doesn't, but I think Magnus just has that little bit extra. Fabiano, don't get me wrong, if he wins, he'd be a great, worthy world champion, and I would, be very, very happy for him because he deserves it the way he's played here. So, just personal opinions, and I just want to share them with you to give you that little bit extra dimension. So anyway, the match is on Wednesday, and I may well stream it. I'm not sure yet. I've got some other things I need to do, but it's going to be fascinating to see who the world champion is. And please do discuss your thoughts on this game in the chat below. Do you think it's an outrage? Do you think Magnus made a big mistake? Probably only hindsight will tell. If Magnus loses the world championships, big mistake. If he wins, great decision. And hindsight is something that is not possible, is it, at the moment? So, thank you for my last round analysis from the classical version of this year's World Championships. I did predict a 6-all draw. If you were on my YouTube channel, I said get your bets on that. You would have won a lot of money. And well done to anyone who had the balls to put a bet down on that. Thank you very much. I'll see you all again shortly. And please like and please do subscribe to this channel. It does help me. Goodbye. Maybe I've been chatting too much, so I'm going to shut up now. Bye for now.